Good morning, everybody. My name is Jim Patterson, and I'd like to welcome you to the latest installment of EPM Lab's webinar series. Today's topic is integrated portfolio analysis for IT. It's not just for project teams anymore. So thank you for joining, and hope you'll find the information we share today useful and beneficial. For those of you that aren't familiar with EPM Live, we are a global leading PPM work management platform that revolutionizes the way people are doing work today, both projects and all different types of work, which is going to be the substance of what we talk about today. We've been working in the consulting realm in this subject matter area since 1999. And through that experience and deploying for thousands of customers, we've really developed some best practices and ideas of what the market's looking for in this arena. And consequently, we have a number of pre-built solution applications that address project portfolio, program, and just overall work management for organizations. We offer these solutions in both an online SaaS or hosted model, as well as on-premise solutions you can install on your own server. So we have a lot of flexibility on the way you would deploy and minimize the risk for deployment for our customers as well. Got a lot of track record. We have over 5,000 customers that we've successfully deployed. And for those customers, we've been able to be a one-stop shop to provide all the products, online services, consulting, deployment services that a customer might want to avail themselves of in order to be successful in deploying solutions and implementing the business process around that. We've gotten a lot of recognition for our success from the analyst groups, from different reviewers and polls on solutions. And we're very happy that we're getting received not only by a large customer base, but also by the analysts who specialize in reviewing and evaluating such types of solutions. And I think one of the reasons we've been so successful is that we have a solution that's very scalable, meaning that we can deploy for even the smallest of businesses, even for the large enterprise companies. For example, even the Gartner Group is impressed with the rate at which we've added customers in our life as a company. The reason for that is that we can address different tiers of the marketplace by having different levels of our solution. They're not mutually exclusive. So EPM Live has different editions. We have an express version, which is, provides basic web-based project collaboration, allows you to do basic schedule management, sharing of information and content, and those types of things. So very lightweight needs for folks that want to just do the basics. You can expand upon that and extend that by going to our professional edition, which really starts adding more different types of work, traditional projects, agile, service requests, and providing tools, resource management, time reporting, and other things to do to move into execution of all different types of work within your organization and provide good portfolio visibility to all that's going on in your organization. And then if you take what's in professional and extend that, you bring everything along that's in there and move to our enterprise edition, you add the features to do things like top-down strategic things like portfolio management, selection and scoring, being able to do resource capacity planning, detailed financial management and budgeting, doing very in-depth what-if analyses and looking at trade-offs and those types of things. So the idea is that organizations can move to the different tier depending on the nature of their business, the size of their business, or the complexity of the types of work that they're going to manage. Because in reality today, the reason we're moving PPM outside of just the traditional project realm and into all work is that the typical scenario that's out there today is there's people with disconnected systems and processes. So depending on the nature and the type of work that's being done, most organizations are deploying separate solutions and databases and processes to manage those different types of work. Here's just analyzing in IT 3 different types of work that you might have in your organization. That means you have to maintain 3 systems. Users have to go and monitor and participate in multiple systems in order to get their workload and participate in a way that helps them fulfill their responsibilities to the organization. And then just aggregating, looking at resource loading and things like that across all these things becomes very difficult, if not impossible. But at a minimum, it ends up being a fairly manual process to pull all that data together from the variety of different types of work and systems. And we find that's inefficient on a lot of fronts. So if you think about all the different types of work that might be involved in the organization, you've got traditional project tasks, maybe you have backlog items that you're using in more of an agile approach. More operationally, you might have incidents or tickets or things like that. The idea is if you look at the totality of all the deliverable, actionable things that people get assigned to do to successfully complete projects and other work, it can be very broad. and then they can be scattered across a number of different systems and different entities. Then to do all the different things around this, you have different types of things like you need to do resource management, you need to manage your product life cycles, you have to do IT service, you have the business processes around those, you've got to manage a portfolio of all your projects and work, and there may be professional services around that have to be managed as well. So these are just some examples of things that have to happen. And then you have to have things that meet the needs of all the different actors or players in the process, meaning there has to be tools that are both effective and add value to the particular roles that have to participate in your project and work management process. And the idea that there has to be something in it for all of them to make it beneficial and to have active participation from all parties to make this thing work. So if we really look at EPM Live's work management platform for encompassing all these different types of work and having tools to address those different audiences, the comprehensive PPM tool is going to provide you more ROI because it's not just going to be tackling a slice or a subset of all the work that's going on. You can get total work management visibility in the solution. So how does that happen? Well, you think about EPM Live as a work management platform with a singular funnel where you can have all different types of demand coming in. It could be requests for projects, it could be incidents or tickets, it could be change requests, it could be all types of different work coming in through that singular funnel. Now that being said, it does not have to be a singular monolithic system where it's a one-size-fits-all proposition. Based on the nature and the type of the request that comes in, they could actually follow their own work stream or business process for both approval and execution. So the idea is that these things can be made applicable to whatever type of work it has. But though it's going through maybe different work streams, it is in the same solution, the same database, and so visibility by team members into things that they've been assigned across all these different work types, or into management wanting to understand the loads that they're putting on their people and the expectations and their investments in this type of work is all currently visible through the same solution and the same platform. So then the process from beginning to end, if you think about this as a closed loop process where you actually collect the work demand in a funnel and you prioritize the work and you potentially analyze financial impact and look at resource demands, select the right projects to work on based upon objective criteria, then plan your work activities and then execute on them and then collaborate on the work as you go on through and then track progress and time against the work that you're working on and analyze the data, see how we're doing, see what's performing well and what's not, and then going through that in a cyclical process. Those tools are all available for you in EPM Live for all the different types of work that you're going to manage. So we collect, we analyze, select, plan, track, and analyze. So if you think about EPM Live as a platform and look at our work management stack, the platform is really EPM Live, which is developed and based in SharePoint. So if you have an existing SharePoint farm, we can actually install right into that and actually just extend what you're doing in SharePoint today by adding all these features. You go with us online in the SaaS model, we provide the full platform for you, and you just subscribe to it and get a user account and get access to your own environment to start managing your projects and your work. And then the different work entities that you have. They might have projects and operational work, programs, service requests, applications that you're managing, just general task management. Whatever the flavors or variations of that apply to your organization, we have different work entities that can be applied for all those within our solution. And then from a feature perspective, to actually look at all these work entities and look at, putting them through automated workflows and doing modeling and what-if scenarios on prioritization and staging of this different type of work, and doing all your analysis reporting and build schedules and monitor costs and resources that are required around that. We provide all of that around all these different types of work entities. And then what we do is we have individual and bundled solution apps that address the needs of a variety of flavors of this work or the nature or type of work depending on the business that you have. And we'll talk more about how that gets applied within our solution as part of the overall presentation today. The other piece of it is that we have normal integration with all the common things that you're used to using, like the Microsoft Office products. Built-in integrations with Outlook and Excel and bi-directional integration with Microsoft Project, as well as integrations that we've done with financial HR ERP systems to help make this part of more of an enterprise solution for the company. So if you think about portfolio management, we can really gather, analyze, prioritize, and track all your work demands with a centralized portfolio or group of portfolios. We can actually start working on things like strategic alignment and assessing risk and really doing objective scoring and valuation of projects and work so that we can actually work on the right things that bring the most value to the organization. From a resource management perspective, we can gain visibility into all resources. And what's nice about this is that we can do it kind of in a couple different fashions. Here you might be looking at more of a capacity planning level where you look at portfolio items. Some of them could be project in nature, product in nature, operational work in nature, and then really at a high level forecast the headcount, the FTEs, or whatever it might be that you want to plan for those different endeavors or initiatives or efforts within the organization. And look at it really from the top down, from a high level. What are we committing to? But then also as you start assigning resources to individual work items and tasks in very detailed schedule-like fashion, we can start looking at what that looks like from the bottom up as we aggregate and say, what's this department tasked with across the board? What's this individual got on their plate? And do they have the bandwidth to do all the things that we put on their plate? Look at really from a capacity versus demand perspective. Building schedules. So really, the nature of the way we plan work. There's definitely structured and unstructured work that can happen in your organization. So managing just a simple to-do list of unstructured things that you might just build a list of work, assign it to people, and have them do that very simply and get that into the work mix. We have our own online Waterfall Planner that allows you to build waterfall schedules with dependencies and resource allocations, etc., right in the web browser, right within our solution without having to have an additional tool to do that. We also have a bidirectional integration with Microsoft Project, very popular planning tool out there, so that you can actually still build your plans in Microsoft Project, publish it out to EPM Live, and have your team members and everyone else work with it in EPM Live. In that SharePoint environment, and have the resultant changes and updates come back to the project manager in Microsoft Project. And then we have an Agile Planner as well. So for example, if you're going to do iterative-based planning and you're going to start capturing backlogs and have user stories and defects and features and things like that that you're going to size and put into iterations or time-boxed type of sprints, we can plan using that type of iterative methodology as well and have those types of projects coexist very nicely with the unstructured operational work as well as the waterfall projects, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So the idea is we have that as well as integration with other SDLC tools like Microsoft's TFS. From a service request perspective, this is kind of that non-structured work where you can maintain all your service requests here in a singular location in our solution and have it actually added to the total workload along with your waterfall projects, your agile, or whatever other types of actionable work you will decide you want to manage within the solution. And so you can have unique needs based on the type of service request. There can be different fields of data, different process for actually assigning the work and possibly getting it through the approval and triaging process. So the idea here is that you can have a singular place for this type of work along with the type of work that you may be doing in more traditional or agile projects. So from a work management perspective, to manage and track all the work demands in your organization, you want to be able to encompass all the potential work that gets put on people's plate based upon the nature of the work that you have, and want to be able to update those things in a singular place. Now for a team member, and you think about a project and work management process, the vast majority of the users or participants in a process tend to be the people who are actually doing the work themselves, those team members. To have a team member be able to go to one place, no matter what type of work it is, and be able to see what's on their plate, see how it's prioritized, and actually look at all the different work types that are highlighted here. There's issues, there's project tasks, there's service requests, there's low-level action items or to-dos. Whatever it is, it can all be put into a singular solution that the user can see what's expected of them and also collaborate and give feedback on progress and completion status right from a singular location. They don't have to go to separate, disparate tools in order to make that happen in our use case scenario. From a time reporting perspective, to capture time and really understand, even no matter how we may have planned this, to understand where people are really spending their time. So folks that want to capture time against all different types of work items, we can capture the actual hours to see what was spent versus maybe what we planned to spend. And we can categorize that work in different ways, billable, non-billable, regular, overtime, whatever the ways that you like to slice that or need to slice that to understand the work. From a resource forecasting perspective, as you start getting people assigned to work and allocated to these things, to be able to get an across-the-board view and see what the allocations are, whether or not people have any remaining availability, and whether or not they're even candidates to take on yet another piece of work is something that's of value and something that we provide right within the EPM Live solution. From a financial management perspective, being able to have detailed line item budgets and track actuals on a line item cost basis for any work item in here, whether it be a project, whether it be an initiative, whether it be some other operational or production support maintenance type of entity, you can start planning and budgeting for what those things are and then track what you really spend against those types of things here in this solution. And also use these financial information to help justify the project in the first place by maybe saying this is what the costs are going to be over time and maybe forecasting the benefits, things like cost reduction or an increased revenue that you're expecting or increased efficiencies that are going to drive some benefit to the bottom line. And then taking all the components of the planning that you're doing and doing what-if modeling. So the idea here being project, non-project work, other types of work can all be factored into this. So when I start looking at the cost impacts or the resource impacts of doing this and potentially, deciding to maybe unselect and not do certain projects or work, or maybe slide out a piece of work to a later time frame because it's a slot where we might be have more resource availability, for example. We can do those types of trade-offs and save those scenarios so that we can make intelligent decisions and trade-offs. Then from a reporting perspective, we really want to just improve overall visibility for decision making, and that whole concept of having separate databases and silos of information no longer has to be your reality. Be able to have dynamic dashboard pages that give you real-time information and actually give you information based upon the audience that you have. So these dashboards could be different depending on your role and the audience that you're part of, or what we would call a community. So the idea being is that you get information at your fingertips that will help you make more timely decisions because you'll understand the current situation quicker. And we leverage a lot of standard tool sets in here. Because it's based on SharePoint and SQL servers on the back end, using things like Excel to grab data, SQL Server reporting services to have easy to build reports, and our reporting database really allows you to pull whatever data in whatever format you like, including our charting web parts that are configurable. Another key piece here is if we're going to start working on all different types of work, people generally don't work on work tasks in a vacuum. So we're providing and entering into our mix more and more social collaboration or social media type of concepts. Whether they be discussion threads on projects, tasks, or other types of work, whether they be comment streams on people collaborating on a particular piece of work or even a task or a project, and even just having the kind of notifications, whether they be supplemented with email or not, to be able to go in and see all of the actionable things that are on your plate, whether it be something that's assigned to you, whether it's a workflow approval that needs your attention. All those types of things get presented to you and gives you easy access to get to that item to actually execute on that for yourself. So the key is we're really making a more push to use modern social tools and methods in order to keep project collaboration at its maximum. And then obviously, business process, governance, and workflow are keys to a modern solution these days. So being able to build simple to complex workflows, but without having to write any code or custom code in order to do that, and be able to do things like, approval workflows, possibly conditional, trees on different flows that have to go through that process. Feedback workflows where people are participating and updating, documents and other request items. The idea is that be able to integrate this appropriately into whatever work method you have and a flexible nature to do that without having to get into heavy custom coding or custom coding at all is something that's a big advantage to what we're proposing with our solution. And part of the way we do this is by really introducing what we call our application marketplace. If you think about kind of like, the iPhone App Store type of concept, where you can actually go to a marketplace and actually add or implement solutions that are pre-built into your EPM Live environment. So even though maybe you're managing projects, right, depending on the nature of the work, your product you're in, or the nature of the company that you're in, You know, it may be more product development. It may be more professional services. It might be more application portfolio management and managing the work around updating and maintaining that portfolio of applications. The idea is that a lot of the concepts are the same, but there's nuances. It makes each of those different work endeavors slightly different based upon the subject matter. And the idea is we provide both individual feature applications as well as bundled applications that have multiple features for you. We actually provide our native applications, one that EPM Live provides with our native tool at no additional charge to you. With the right rights and abilities, you can actually go in and deploy any one of these to your organization, and actually multiple of them in another way. Because what we do is we actually have the concept of called communities. So for example, you might be part of a projects community, or you might be part of a product development community. You might be part of a resource management organization. Well, however you would define communities, you could have a different user experience, look and feel, menu structure, workflows and business process for all these different communities. So it doesn't have to be a one-size-fits-all. Yet all work is still in the same solution, and visibility into all workload and demand can be actually rolled up and analyzed and quantified across all these different things. So in this area, you might have different needs for different parts of the organization that are addressed by variations of how work is actually done. And we also provide integration with other line of business applications. So even if you have a system of record in place for, say, help desk or service requests, and you start using us as a system of record for traditional projects and maybe some service requests or agile work, we can actually routinely pull in the workload that's generated in these other solutions to then start looking at the aggregate and the quantification of capacity versus demand across all work. We can actually be the hub where we can analyze total work, even though you may have some of that work being generated elsewhere. So the idea is there's a lot of flexible capability to be able to provide that information even with additional sources. And because we are built in SharePoint, for our on-premise customers that are installing into an existing SharePoint farm, you know, the power of that is that we get to leverage, if you look at the bottom tier on the SharePoint features, the broad set of capabilities that SharePoint brings to the table, from content management to web parts to search to BI tools and different ways to surface data. All the things that, that it provides, we can leverage as a foundation on all this. And we actually will run in any tier of SharePoint. It doesn't have to be the enterprise version. It could be the free foundation version. It could be the standard server or the enterprise server. Our tools are compatible with all those tiers of SharePoint. And then EPM Live, what we're doing is we're leveraging these core capabilities of SharePoint, but we're using them in very specific ways to do the things like demand management, portfolio management, financial management, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And we're also providing a mechanism where your UI can be handled through a variety of different browsers. As you can see up top, we support Internet Explorer, Chrome, Firefox, and Safari, and from a variety of devices, whether it be your computer, whether it be your tablet, whether it be your mobile device and your phone. So the idea here is that we have a lot of flexibility in ways to access this solution, but leveraging the power of a very, very, very rapidly growing and very broadly adopted collaborative platform in SharePoint. So one of the reasons why it's important to possibly do this in a SharePoint environment. Now, if you go online with us, it might not be as relevant to you because of the fact that we're providing the infrastructure. But if your folks are familiar with the navigation and the concepts around SharePoint, the adoption risk is much lower because there's a familiarity with how it works and how you get around in it. But you get to leverage what you already own. Hence, you can save yourself some money. You can also not be as dependent on a third-party vendor like us to maintain the solution. You can leverage existing IT resource skill sets, people who already know SharePoint to maintain this without you having to come to EPM Live for every little thing that needs to be done. And then really just leveraging the core capabilities of this robust platform and really take the current investment you've made in SharePoint and just get yet even more value out of it is something that's very compelling. So with that, I thought I would show you a little bit about what we're doing from a demonstration perspective and see the actual application live. So here in the solution, whether you're online or whether you're on premise, you would authenticate in here like any other SharePoint user. So here I'm in as this fictional Steve Masters person. And his home page would be dictated by who he is, his role, what data he has access to, and what community he's part of. You can have any number of different communities in here. Right now, he only has access to this project communities in his own workspace. But the idea here is that he has access to his My Work area. All of his projects that he's either a member or an owner of show up here in his My Active Projects web part. And he can do things like manage his tasks, his issues, his documents, his resource information, and do reporting through all that. Also, comments can happen, like I mentioned, on any of these items. So you can look at a comment stream on a particular piece of work, and you can collaborate with comments across all this, and actually have a comment stream that actually allows him to participate centrally on all different types of work items without having to be in those specific work items. Now, in that regard, he doesn't have to be in any one particular project or particular space to really add new items to this solution. Here, from any part where he's in the solution, he can actually go to a Create New button, and whatever types of work entities you've actually created in this solution can actually be created from here. So if I wanted to create an issue, I can create the issue and associate it with a project at any given point in time. So I can go to a list here, I can associate this risk with a project, and then put in whatever fields of data make the most sense. It can actually then be related to other issues as well as assigned specifically to individuals, so it becomes part of their total workload. And as you can see here, we've got backlog items, to-do items, issues, and project tasks all in his individual work item load. Now, as you go on through, let me go to another example here to where in this particular example, there could be a project organization here that's doing all the traditional project management things. They might be working on programs and projects and tasks, issues, risks, change requests, documents, resources, reports. And the idea here being is that all these different types of work items can be managed in here as well. But that being said, if I had access, you could create different communities. So let's say, for example, we wanted to do something more in a product development metaphor or approach, where this product development community would have a different experience here, as opposed to having the project-oriented types of things. You could install an application set for them that is more appropriate to what product development is. Now, that one isn't fully fleshed out yet. Gives me the excuse to go over here to the application marketplace, and then allows me to go in and say, what if I wanted to deploy a new product development application, which is one of our bundled applications, into the mix here. You can actually look at an overview of it. You can actually see some screenshots on the things that are available. It also talks about the different features that are in here that you could actually look at, and actually any prerequisites and requirements of what you might have to have in place from us in order to make this work. Now, all of these native applications, like I mentioned to you, are free. Well, what if I decided I wanted to build another community? And if I come in here and I say, let me go create a new community. And I don't know, let me just call it IT. Now, that community would be added to the mix of available communities. I could actually make people members of different parts of these communities. And at its core, if you're looking at building this from the ground up, all I have right now is a home page in this. I haven't really added any applications to this mix. But what if I came in here and said, let me add an app? And it takes me to the App Store. And let's just say in that, in IT, I wanted to add service requests. Well, let me learn more about the service requests. Let me say, get it now. And it will automatically check to see if you have the prerequisites, if it's already installed in your solution, and if it is, it would allow me to add it to this community or install it new for this community. Now, as I've gone on in and gotten this accomplished, you'll see that service requests has been added to the IT community. And in that mix, you can go to your service requests and start adding these things from day one. So the idea is that it added all the capabilities you need in here. If you go in here and you put in, say, a new want to launch a new item. All the fields that you would need for this in our templated solutions are available to you, though they can be added or modified too. You know, the pull-down lists and the views, etc. All these things are modifiable, but they give you a way to start working with this stuff right out of the chute. And on top of that, you get access to different views and reports and capabilities that would be applicable to these particular types of request items. You know, what if I wanted to add, I don't know, what if I wanted to add something like project requests? I can do that and go into that and say, let me go in here and add some project requests in here. I'll add it to the same community. And it says it successfully passed the pre-check. And now if I install it, should be done here shortly. The idea here is instead of having to configure this stuff from the ground up and adding the fuel and all those types of things, we can actually get through all this and go back to our communities and then look at the different items that we have in there. So for example, here in this little sandbox environment I have here, I might go into, say, professional services. And notice that the menu is a lot different than when we were at projects. You know, professional services, we're looking at opportunities and accounts and contacts, possibly doing quotes and billing and other reports. Other mechanisms that are really conducive to more professional services types operations than traditional project organizations. And this is a bundled application where you could say if I install professional services, it actually installs all these different feature sets in one pass. So I don't have to configure all these things from the get-go. Okay. If I go into our demo environment again, you'll also get to see in here that there's features and functions that are available here from a perspective in managing different portfolios. So for example, in this area, you might define different portfolios of which projects can become members of one or many of these different portfolio items. So for example, I might have a product innovation portfolio. And in that, if I say, show me all the projects that are members of that portfolio, it will show me everything that's associated with that portfolio. So here there's 3 projects that I can look at in the aggregate that are all part of this portfolio. And then I can see all of them and see what the roll-up information is where it's applicable, as well as look at and drill into the individual feature sets of each of those. On the project side of things, we can look at our project portfolios in a variety of ways. But one of the things that we get to do is, for example, if I open up a particular project, and I say, let me go into edit this item. This portfolio item could be anything. It could be a project. It could be a service portfolio item. It could be a number of different things. But for example here, I can start putting things like costs and budget against these, this project. I can actually score this in different weighted categories on things like how well it strategically aligns. You know, to what degree are we going to provide cost reduction? What type of risk is there in each of these categories? And by the way, these are all modifiable by our customers. So that you can have the categories that make sense to you, the scoring selections that make the most sense, and have these categories weighted against one another to provide a total weighted score. So that when you actually come into a portfolio, you can start looking at, for example, you can start looking at, say, a project assessment view that shows the scoring and the return on investment and things like that that you might want to look at. So in the cost reduction area, you can see what selections were made. In the risk area, you can see what was made. You can look at the prioritization score that is a net result of these overall weighted score selections that were made, as well as other information like return on investment and other things that you might do to make a financially based decision on this. The other thing we can do is traditional portfolio analysis, where we start looking at things like you know, a traditional bubble chart, where we can actually analyze work by the criteria that makes the most sense to us. In this case, I've got the plan benefit is basically what we've decided as the x-axis, but you can choose any of the data values that are available. The y-axis is the prioritization score, so we can see the higher priority things versus the benefit. To that regard, high prioritization score with high plan benefits, something in the upper right of this would probably be the very sweet ideal spot for a lot of our projects. The size of the bubble is based on the budget of the project, and then the color is basically through what life cycle stage we're in. So the idea is that these are all selectable, and you can change the selection mix on what projects are included and also how you'd like to show those types of things for portfolio analysis. And this can include all of the work that we're going to manage. On a particular project, if I wanted to go in and look at creating a resource capacity plan, I can go into a particular project that's in the early stages of creation at this point, and let's just say I want to plan something generically. Maybe it's too early for me to have specific names up here like I do now. Maybe I say, you know, I need to have a project manager on this particular project, so I can drag that generic resource up to the project. And here, for example, I can say, all right, let me allocate values, and I'll say I'll make it about 80 hours a month, about half-time, spread over this duration. Apply it, and then all of a sudden I've got essentially a half-time project manager allocated for this. Now, that being said here, as I plan, early on I might have all of my resources planned in a generic fashion. And then later on I'm going to have to find specific resources that might fulfill that role. So for example, at an appropriate time I might say, let me find a match for that project manager role. And now it's given me some examples of project managers who not only fill that role, but also show me their remaining availability. It looks like Eli could become the resource that fulfills on this. And now Eli is assigned and made as the project manager on this team for this particular effort. So what's nice about that is as I start looking at high-level resource planning on all these items, and I start looking at overall, say maybe looking at the context of all the projects and looking at a resource analysis view, I can start going in and start saying, what's the net impact to all my resources here, and where are the over and under allocated resources? So for example, here's all the projects that are in the mix, here are the resource requirements in general, and then down below here are the resources and which ones are over and under allocated based on the totality of all the capacity plans that are in the solution. You know, if I took a project out of the mix, what would that do to the information down below? Does it help? Does it hinder? Etc. I can also total these things in different ways. I can total them by the different roles or departments, so I can look at what the total demand is and over and under allocation on a department basis as well as on an individual resource basis. I can also build a cost plan if I wanted to go in here and put detailed budgets. I can analyze the portfolio of all this work. So for this particular portfolio item, regardless of the type of work it is, I can start planning to the cost categories that make sense to me internally. Plan budget, do actuals, track benefits, and look at this at a detailed line item basis so I can compare how these things are doing. And then from an overall, let's just say, what-if analysis perspective, we have a what-if modeler, which also allows us to do some other things. So for example, if I look at the selection of projects that I want to include in this what-if scenario, I now have all the projects and the high-level timeline on those work efforts. Down below, I have cost categories down below, and I can actually apply targets. So if I actually have a budget that's established overall for the organization, I can start looking and seeing, does this overall mix allow me to do it within the budgets that I have? And there's certain areas where I don't. So what if, for example, I decided to take a couple of the lower priority projects and deselect them? You know, does that help at all? And it does seem to relieve me of some of the issues here. But maybe what I also have to do is, you know, take another project and maybe delay it for a few months in order to significantly have a proper impact on that. The idea is the combination of staging your projects as well as selecting the ones that are highest priority gives us the ability to do that in safe scenarios to understand the mix and the possible, let's just say, variations in approach that we can take to do this effectively. And once again, all these can be different types of work. They don't have to be just traditional projects. They can be more operational efforts that you allocate headcount to. They could be more agile projects, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So with that, the real concept then becomes, how do we look at reporting in this mix? If you come into something like this and you're looking at dashboards and reports, for example, an executive community might be one that shows nothing but dashboard types of reports. And the idea here is these are all configurable web parts. So notice there's a number of projects, projects by manager, and all different types of reporting here. So for example, if I look at, I don't know, project reporting, and I start looking at things like a quick status dashboard across all the projects that I have access to. We can see some objective data on things like on overdue tasks and overspent budget, how many active issues that we have, or the issues that are overdue to be completed or resolved, and then graphics and charts that support that. And here down below we have some things on overdue tasks that we might want to look at as well. The idea is that all of this information on all your different work is available to you at your fingertips. So to that regard, let me wrap up the next steps. It's really simple to explore this with us. If you go to us at epmlive.com, you can try out the different editions that we have. If you notice, there's some entry-level pricing that are available for our different editions that are in here. But also notice on the bottoms that there's ability for you to request a free trial, that you can get into an online environment where you can actually play with this and get hands-on with it and put it through its paces. So the idea is if you contact us and request through the website, or contact us at info@epmlive.com, or call us at 855-EPM-LIVE, we'll help you with the next steps on how you can personally evaluate this solution and looking for different ways that it can be made applicable for you. With that, I'd like to thank you. Hopefully we demonstrated a little bit today about how EPM Live can be leveraged to manage all different types of work, all within a common environment, but with different communities that might have different varying needs within your organization. So it can truly be a global solution for you and the type of work that you're doing. Thanks again, and let us know if we can be of any help. Bye-bye now.